All right, what's going on, guys? Today we are going to be going through another scrolling through IG. I hope you guys enjoy these as much as I like putting them together. All right, so let's jump right into it. Now, first off, I've got to say, I know my last scrolling through IG was a little controversial, especially if you saw the first version or if you remember and you saw it in the member section. And there was a lot of things I said that I maybe wish I could take back, but there's one thing that just really is like sticking out to me. So I just got to start with this, and I just want to say I'm sorry, and if I could, I would take this back.
So TNF seems like a pretty cool guy. I've never seen a really bad take from him.
Until this. After years of training, I finally decided to remove all chest pressing from my program, and I do not regret it. There's no solid reason why you should not be able to accomplish everything for the chest with fly variation. Of course, presses still work great, but for someone who can use all the advantages possible, removing triceps from the equation seems to have done wonders. Well, I've covered TNS's pressing style in the past, and it's not the best, so it's not surprising that it's not his strongest body part, but I definitely would not say removing presses is an advantage. And when it comes to most influencers, especially ones that have like a big reach like TNF, they're going to be way more surface level with their knowledge and their advice, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's who they're reaching, and most of the time, like I said, I haven't really heard TNF being off on much. Like most of the time, he's pretty dead on. This is a case where he's looking at things through a little bit more of a like theoretical lens and not taking into account all the other things that are happening if we take out pressing motions for chest. So let's think about what's different between a press and a fly first off, right? So when we're pressing, we are going to stabilize with scapular depression if you do it right, if you know how to press. And just doing that is going to create some more activation from your pecs. Like they do help with scapular depression. They play a pretty big role in that. And so pricing from there is just going to create a different stimulus than focusing just on straight adduction from like a fly. You're going to be able to get a lot more length and tension on the sternal fibers because you'll be able to get much more expansion and be able to keep that dorsal rostrum area from compressing right away, which is going to take away the stretch on the front. So if you are pressing, you can keep that stack better. You're actually going to get a better stretch on these majority of the sternal fibers than if you do a fly and you lose your stack and you go into compression, which is just more natural with the fly. You're going to have more levels of dorsal rostral compression on a fly. So you're missing out on scapular depression, and as I just mentioned, you're starting to accumulate higher levels of dorsal rostral compression, which is going to affect your mobility and other things, and also, like I said, your ability to keep tension on the front side. The other thing with flies is we tend to compress to the front too. And I've seen TNF fly, that's exactly what he does. He compresses to the back and shape changes to the front. So we're getting compression on both ends. On a press, it's much easier to stay open. You're not gonna close down that hard like you will on a fly. So you're getting a lot more anterior compression. You're missing out on that anterior expansion, which is actually gonna help you grow. And majority of your flies you're gonna be doing from this externally rotated shoulder position. And yeah, that's gonna isolate your pecs a little bit more, but when you do work from a pronated position like a press, you're gonna be able to have a lot more maximal force production from your pecs doing that than a fly. So even though you're able to isolate a little more on the fly, your pecs aren't in a position to be as strong. So even though you're sharing the load, you can move more weight. So which is better? I wanna do a little bit of both. Okay, I don't wanna exclusively do flies. I think that's a very silly thing to do. So I think TNF is just really trying to figure out why his chest isn't that good of a body part, but just learn how to press right, and I promise you won't have to switch to only flies. You'll do better if you learn how to press right. All right, so next up, I've got another Natty influencer, somebody that I had been meaning to cover for like the last 2 or 3 videos. They just kept getting too long, and I kept pushing them on to the next one. So let's do it today. Ryan Jewers. And now he was requested. I did not know who he was before I checked out his stuff. And I can see why the algorithm would not recommend him to me, because he is not somebody I would be the slightest bit interested in following. But I'm not hating him. I'm not saying this stuff is terrible. It just does not appeal to me.
Here is a full leg day workout from my previous training block, specifically lower B for macrocycle 2, mesocycle 6, chest and arm specialization, microcycle 4 to week 5, day 4. I'm still...
What the fuck did he just say? If you've done any of my programming, you know I don't get that crazy. I think that a lot of people get lost in programming, doing all these macro cycles and mesocycles. Yeah, depending on where you're at in your lifting journey, sometimes there is some benefit to trying to elicit like specific adaptations through certain phases of training. But for the most part, like, you don't got to get that crazy. You don't have to be so OCD about it, I promise. You can still get gains if you don't plan out a whole 2 years worth of macro and mesocycles.
Running a 4-day upper lower high frequency split by using 3 different upper days and 3 different lower.
So he's got pretty good wheels. I'll definitely give him that. He's going to be one of these more limb dominant guys, it looks like. Doesn't really look like he's got the best torso and chest, but legs are pretty solid, arms aren't bad.
Days to allow for more total exercises within the training week, thus increasing the number of muscle regions being biased via regional hypertrophy to ensure that we are maximizing total muscle fibers being stimulated to achieve the benefits of high frequency training.
All right, so what did he just say? Let me listen to that again and see if I can translate that to normal bro English.
Upper lower high frequency split by using 3 different upper days and 3 different lower days to allow for more total exercises within the training week, thus increasing the number of muscle regions being biased via regional hypertrophy to ensure that we are maximizing total muscle fibers being stimulated to achieve the benefits of high frequency training. This approach also limits monotony and is more enjoyable too. As always, all of my work.
So basically what he's saying is, I'm like Charles Glass. I like the angles. I enjoy doing a big exercise selection, which I agree with. I don't like the science-based influencers that are like, you only need 2 exercises for this muscle because they hit both functions and that's it. It's like, no, there is such a thing as regional hypertrophy as he's talking about, but when you do say I'm doing different presses from different reaches, that's creating expansion in different areas. Your scapula and your shoulder blades doing different things wherever your arms are, that it changes. So we're getting certain areas to get more expansion while others are more compressed when we're in different arm positions. So somebody like Charles Glass, who people kind of make fun of, who's all about the angles and does all these little crazy angles, he's been training people long enough to know it makes a difference in the way the physique looks. It gives them more of a round, more of a developed 3D look. I don't think it's necessary because you're hitting all these different fibers. I think it's because you're getting expansion in all these different areas, and that's going to create that more round 3D look. There's a very unique compressed look that people have.
As always, all of my workouts will continue to be posted. So to start, we'll do the calves first with a bilateral toe press this time around. I like training the calves first more often, as training them isn't very fatiguing in terms of central nervous system fatigue, and isn't all that mentally taxing either, so mood and improvement in subsequent training won't be negatively impacted too much. Whereas, if you train the calves later in the session, especially bilaterally, the hypertrophy stimulus will be reduced significantly, as quadricep and hamstring training is rather fatiguing. When training the calves, use a much slower eccentric and a much longer pause on the bottom as the calves grow best from a stretch. The gastroc has the best leverage in the length of position, and the soleus experience a stretch mediated hypertrophy to a small degree.
That is a very long way to say, I like training calves first because they're fresh and I get the most out of them, and I like to hang out in the stretch position a little longer. You didn't need those extra 200 words, bro. But it's cool. I mean, some people are into it. That's what's good. Like, he's got a lot of people who like this way of talking and this way of looking at things. There's an influencer for everybody.
Next, I do a pendulum squat. This can be substituted with a banded hack squat to achieve a similar outcome. Although you can do it unbanded if you want a little more vastus medialis, in other words, the quadricep teardrop muscle.
Now, his pendulum squat looks really good, but I can tell he's able to get that deep because his pelvis is pretty dumped forward. He's pretty anteriorly oriented. So even though he's not doing like a lot of crazy orientation to get that deep, he's keeping pretty good tension on his legs. He shouldn't necessarily be able to get there if he was in a more neutral spot.
As well as a little more adductor, as these muscles
But
have better
can't
leverage
complain about
at the
that.
bottom, which is where it'll be hardest at. If you want a little more vastus lateralis, I recommend banding. Use a controlled eccentric and a pause in the bottom to standardize your range of motion and technique. Don't cut your range of motion short here. Then for the hamstrings, I do a lying leg curl, since there's a seated leg curl on lower end.
And you can tell by him doing this lying leg curl, look at his legs, look at his feet.
A and a hinge on lower C. While the hamstrings do benefit from stretch mediated hypertrophy by
They're like super turned out. So anytime you see that, you know somebody's just got that squished pelvis. That's what you see Dr. Mike do. That's what you see with any of these guys who really push huge range of motion on their legs do, because their pelvis has gone from like a normal to this to out there for them to be able to do the things that they do. So whenever your iliums get squished to the outside, your femurs, they get externally rotated as well. And then you got your knees and your toes pointed out. It's not like a bad thing. I would say try to keep them from going out so far, but they're going to have to go out to a certain degree if you're just that compressed.
the addition of passive mechanical tension, especially the semimembranosus musculature, making the seated leg curl an excellent choice. The lying leg curl, when compared to the seated leg curl, has actually shown to display higher levels of muscle activation, correspondingly more muscle growth of the biceps for more short head.
So like I said, I really like that he's not dogmatic about this is the best exercise because of this reason. Like when I covered Monday, one of the things he said was like, seated leg curl is all you need, end of story. So I do like his approach a lot more, and he's got like solid scientific reasoning behind it as well. And Monday believes he's got very solid scientific reasoning behind his stuff as well. So I can see how it's confusing, but that's why I don't really harp on anything besides biomechanics, because to me, that's the only thing that's really black and white. Everything else works to some degree, whatever you like. I do think more variety is better than less variety. I don't think there's a negative thing to that. But in general, the only thing that's going to make a huge difference is how good you know your biomechanics, not how good you know your programming, not how good your exercise selection is. Yeah, it's going to make a tiny difference, but if you're doing it all fucked up, it doesn't matter.
When the hip is extended, in other words, when lying down, this muscle also only...
He's also getting a ton of like lower back helping at the end. I would try to do at least a little bit of stability through my abs by like a slight posterior tilt.
And lastly, a bilateral seated leg extension is done to finish things off. The rectus femoris quadricep muscle is shut off during squats and leg press.
So I always like to look at things like this. Look at his feet. So this is just the way I am. I can't help but notice this stuff. So I'm getting an idea of like how compressed he is by looking at his workout, by seeing how like excellently rotated his legs are on those leg curls, for example. Now when I'm watching him do this quad extension, look at the left foot. You see how it's pointed down and the right foot is really pulled up and the toes are coming back? It's like this left leg is so much more in a stance of propulsion. The way the toes point it, it's like in a position of trying to get off that leg, while the right is cocked forward and we've got a really big arch. It means you want to stay on that right side and not get off of it. So you can tell just by looking at what someone's feet's doing on something like this, what each side of the pelvis has going on. Watch when I unpause it. See how that right one stays up and the left one's down?
Pull yourself down into the seat to better stabilize yourself.
You can't help it. It goes back down right away. And that's because he's compressed bilaterally, but he's still shifted into that right side. So this left side is way more forward. It's going to cause that kind of a presentation on the foot. And this one's a little more back, and it's going to cause that more stance position on the foot.
And keep the feet neutral and pointed up.
I do like how he's doing counterforce on the machine. He's not like lifting up from the pelvis, or he's pushing down his legs as he's hitting knee extension. That's really good.
What is your split? Well, I'll quickly cover it and why for my next mesocycle as a training block. That'll be starting.
This is freaking me out. Like, is this just him talking? This is the way he just speaks? I thought that was like voice transcribed and sped up times like 10. Like, is this guy AI? What is happening?
In about a week or so, once I'm back in Canada and massing again, I'll also provide you guys an update on myself as well. This is my current look at about 200 pounds.
So if we look at his physique, you can tell he has got that super compressed look I was talking about. He's got a good physique, I'm not saying that, but I don't see any volumization to the chest like at all. And I can tell just by looking at his rib cage that it's super compressed. He's very squished front to back. He doesn't have any like thickness that way.
Pounds after taking a 4-week Matus phase to psychologically deload and take a break from hard training and the monotony of dieting. So I was training only 3 times per week, no nutrition tracking, 3.25 weeks at maintenance, and 5-day aggressive mini cut to drop an additional 8 pounds. Mind you, it's incredibly easy to maintain muscle, and we see this in research. So given the data, I wasn't concerned with that at all. Now I do generally train very similar when I cut versus mass.
What is happening here? I don't know why this is freaking me out so bad. Like, I don't know if it's how like perfectly manicured he looks, and he's got like very feminine eyes, but they're like narrow, and he's got the man bun. Just the way he talks, like something about this is giving me very like uncanny valley vibes. I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like this isn't a real human.
You guys have been following me for over the last year, so you know that I've brought up my triceps
Not a bad tricep.
a fair amount, so I'm going to quickly show you my favorite
I
exercise
don't see a lot of pec there, but that tricep looks good.
for them that help me pack on some serious size to the arm. This is an incline cable push down. Now it's pretty well the same as a standing tricep push down, but it's obviously more stable due to the external stabilization provided by the bend, resulting in less abdominal or rather abs contribution, and thereby reducing coordination demands and coactivation, thus reducing perception of effort, leading to an increase in the amount of central motor command that we can generate, and consequently increasing agonist muscle activation and motor recruitment.
This is like another example of you saying a million words to really not say that much. Just say it's more stable. That's it. It's more stable so I can focus more on the movement. Like, you don't like we don't have to do all the word salad. But again, I get it. There probably are people that just eat this shit up, but it's just not my style at all.
Still phenomenal for the triceps and
you can just see how much he stabilizes through his erectors on everything too. He was doing it when he was seated as well. All right, so I think his best body part is his legs, and here he is going heavy on a leg press. Let's break down his form and also compare maybe what I would do instead. All right, so he's set up a little bit wide and a little bit out. If you want to get really good depth and you're going for like adductors as well, that's a fine setup. That's fine. He's pretty low, so he still gets some decent quads. All right, so this is all good. I would say right here, right before here, was his limit. Like, he's going to start compressing and just kind of like flopping to the outside. His knees are just going to go out through compression of that pelvis. Pelvis is going to start to ER from the sides and compress down here, and that's going to make the femurs go to the outside. So check that right here. So right there, you see how they just totally move to the outside? Like, that's not tension on your muscle doing that. You're just compressing your pelvis more. So I mean, even if you want to go really deep, this is too deep. that's just a squished pelvis. And you can't do that. You can't even get in that position without it already being squished as fuck. Like, all that is unnecessary. All that's extra that's not necessarily going to the muscle. And his stuff is subtle. I mean, that's why he's got good legs, because it's not crazy bad. And he does have good motor control with what he's got. But that's not what I would do, because there's a big cost to that. And you can tell by his physique and by certain things that he's super compressed. I'll point out some more later. What I would do, this is a slightly different machine. This is the Cybex squat press, but this is how I leg press. But I leg press more for quads. If I was gonna do just overall leg size and wanted adductors, I would go a little bit wider and a little bit turned out and a little lower than I'm going here, but I wouldn't go nearly as low as he's going. But I don't really like leg press for adductors. If I'm doing like adductors, I feel like I get better activation going through something that's gonna give me hip extension, and you will, because the adductor magnus has a role with hip extension. So I'm much more of a fan of doing like sumo belt squats for adductors. I'd way rather do that than like a deep leg press. But this is how I would do the leg press. So my feet are low, so I can get more of a moment arm, which I hate talking about moment arms, but I get more of a moment arm for the quads. And so what I'm thinking about as I'm lowering this is the weight starting on my inner heel and it's shifting through to that first med head. And at the bottom, I'm thinking about almost flattening out that arch. I'm trying to get my foot flat before I push it up. And you can see I don't have any kind of compression going on the pelvis. And what I feel is a ton of this bass is lateralis. I feel a shit ton right there. So it's a much smaller range of motion, but it's a lot more continuous tension. And honestly, if I were to open up my legs and go deeper, that's lighter. That's easier than me keeping them tight and going slow and using this range of motion to keep in tension there. A lot of people get that misconstrued. The same thing when I bench press. Like, I can do a hook line bench press and stop 2.5 inches before I touch my chest with 3 plates, and it is fucking so hard. I can hit that for like 5, 6 maybe. I can put my feet on the ground and arch my back and touch my chest and rep that out for 10. It's way easier. So it's like, just because you're using a small range of motion doesn't mean it's easier when you're forcing all the tension there and you're not letting your axial skeleton take a lot of the force by having these weird orientations or compression techniques happening. All right, so here's a good physique shot. So yeah, really good legs, but literally no pecs. I mean, none of these science-based guys have pecs because they all are obsessed with the stretch, and you lose the stretch when you become obsessed with the pecs, because like all these guys are really into like the whole dead guy anatomy. They talk about moment arms all the time. They talk about muscle actions, but like that's just a model that is incomplete that we try to use to explain things somewhat. But if you don't take into account the shape of the axial skeleton and the impact it has on all the peripheral structures, your muscles, your joints, your bones, then you're missing a very, very big part of the whole picture. And I used to think the exact same way. If you look back at some of my videos, if you remember, I have videos that I posted like 10 years ago, you'll see me saying very similar stuff to what a lot of the science-based guys say now, but I evolved. Like, I was happy to get better. I feel like a lot of these guys, and I'm not saying this is Ryan necessarily, I'm thinking of a couple other people actually, but a lot of these guys, I feel like they don't want to learn what they don't know, because then it makes them feel like less adequate of a coach or fitness influencer or whatever. It's like they're afraid to learn that they're not seeing the whole picture, because that's going to change the whole world perspective. They're going to have to admit a lot of the stuff I was saying might not be right. And if you look at my old videos, and that's why I don't have them open to the public, they're only to members, a lot of the shit I was saying wasn't right, but I saw an opportunity to learn more and become better, and I jumped at that. It's like, if someone's trying to present something to you that goes against what you believe, you owe it to yourself to at least listen to it and consider, because that could be an opportunity to be better. Don't be afraid. Don't push it off because you don't want to hear it, because it doesn't make sense to you now. Take it in, because you don't want to pass up a chance to improve. That makes no sense to me, and I feel like that's how a lot of these guys are. They don't even want to hear it. So yeah, I don't see a lot going on with the pecs at all. And like I said, I see a really compressed look. He looks great. I mean, he's got a good physique for sure. But I love having big, thick pecs, and as a guy, I think that's one of the most important parts of your physique, and you can tell that he's really missing it. And somebody like him who thinks he has such a really vast understanding of how all this works, he probably just saying that's a really genetic weak part. But when we look at his style of pressing, we can see that if he changed it the way I recommend, I bet you he would be seeing a lot better results, and he wouldn't blame it on genetics. And now when I look at this physique update, like my brain just starts going haywire. Like I can't help but look at possible presentations and see like a million things. And again, it's always good. I would need this verified on the table, but I've been doing this long enough and I've seen enough people that get tight from working out in the gym that I kind of know what I'm seeing. So I'm just going to point out to you guys everything that I see in this presentation, okay? So right off the bat, if you look at this left side of his rib cage, you can see how it's way more flared, it's more externally rotated. This lat's gonna flare a lot more because of that. You can see the asymmetry in the pecs. Now, this left pec is actually a lot fuller, and that's because we're able to get some like apical expansion, actually get some anterior expansion on here. This right side is not at all. And you can tell they're just in different positions too, because his sternum is really shifted. This left pec is getting pulled hard because the sternum is going right and it's getting stretched out. So if we look at the lower body, look at this left leg. So it's set behind the right's in front of it. Now, if the right was right next to it, he'd feel like he was turning behind him. So that's why he set it in front of him a little bit, because that kind of squares him up. But just by looking at this standing presentation, you can see his left foot is a little flatter. The way it's turned out, this is him trying to get off of his left leg. The right leg's a little bit in front. You can look at the foot. It's more supinated. This is his stance leg. He's even just standing here, he's trying to get off his left onto his right. That's what I can see just looking at that. If we go look at his neck, you can tell that his cervical spine is rotated to the right, and he has this left counter rotation that is really common. This is called the right TMCC pattern. And because your cervical spine rotates this way, you kind of counter it like that. And you can tell that is exactly what he's got going on there. Right side's a little bit more pulled down. So, I mean, he's presenting very compressed. He's very anterior to posteriorly compressed, but he's also got a lot of asymmetrical stuff going on. I'm surprised he doesn't deal with a lot of injuries, but a lot of times if you have this setup and you just really listen to your body and you've got a good mind-muscle connection, you can kind of make it so you don't like fuck yourself up, but you're never gonna be able to push yourself as hard as you could if you had a really optimal like base that you're working from. And it's kind of hard to tell exactly because of the way his legs are, but it looks like that right adductor is a lot more developed, which is pretty normal. And potentially this left vastus lateralis is more developed. That is not unusual as well. And here's another little physique post he made in response to somebody making fun of him, which, I mean, come on, like, just because I don't agree with everything that is coming out of this guy's mouth, he's putting out good information for a lot of people. He's helping people. So, I mean, like, and he doesn't look like shit or anything. How are you going to say he's the laughing stock? But this is just to show that he really does have no pecs, though. Like, that's pretty bad. So let's check out his chest pressing, see if we can figure out why he might not have the best chest.
Using an arch when incline chest pressing isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just something you will want to avoid or at least limit when the goal is to target the upper chest as much as possible. When I'm chest pressing for the...
Well, I agree with that. You don't want to arch, but you don't want to get crazy compressed either. Even if you don't arch, like if you do all that wonky anterior compression and posterior compression just to lower the weight, you're missing out on the pecs.
The upper pec, I think about pressing with a more spread back while maintaining only a very slight arch for comfort. Having my head slightly off the bench seems to help with this.
And you may have heard me talk before about why having your head off the bench can help you keep that dorsal rostral area from excessively compressing. It's because you're moving forward in space. You're creating space between your shoulder blades like through an orientation. So it's not like relative motion, but it's a way to keep tension on your pecs. And it's something that bodybuilders have been doing a long time. And I don't necessarily love it, but I don't hate it in certain situations either. So if we watch what he's doing, like as he's lowering it, he's literally squishing himself and getting it off of him through this whole shoulder girdle moving. Like that is not your pecs, bro. This is why your pecs aren't your strong part. And like if you have a body part that's weak, like try something different. Like maybe if exercise selection isn't doing anything, if you know where you're putting it in your program is not doing anything, maybe you need to look at your execution and consider things that you haven't considered, like using a smaller range of motion and keeping a stack.
This will allow for the most upper pec contribution when pressing on...
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, I don't recommend that at all. I don't know how he doesn't have like shoulder or neck issues, honestly.
On a 30-degree incline. Once you start to use a large arch, this will shift the emphasis onto the mid-pec. So for the mid-pec, I'd recommend flat pressing or pressing on a 15-degree incline with a large arch. Lastly, I
would never do that arch that he was just doing there. That is ridiculous. You don't want to try to hit different parts of your pec by changing the angle through an arch. Change the angle on the fucking bench and keep your stack. I promise you'll get way better activation and you'll really keep your mobility if you do that. Jeez, like this is the same kind of stuff that Joe Bennett says. And like I said, I'm gonna cover him in depth on the next thing, but I just don't understand how so many people get this wrong. It's like, once you take into account the rib cage, the ball and the socket joint of your shoulder and the scapulohumeral rhythm that goes with that, you can't use that simple thinking. It does not work. All right, let's look at some more presses. And so what he's missing here is scapular depression. That would help him activate those sternal fibers a lot. And if he had scapular depression, he would kind of want to stop right there. But since he doesn't, like, he's going to get that extra dorsal rostral compression, and then he's going to kind of roll up at the elbows, it looks like. Yeah, like, you don't want to start doing that when you're trying to hit your chest. And again, he thinks he's getting such a good stretch on his pecs, but as soon as you start compressing that upper back area, now we've lost a lot of tension on the front. You never want to lose the shape of your ribcage. You guys hear me beat this horse to death. Yeah, everything he's got no intra-abdominal pressure or no intrathoracic pressure on. I mean, that's an easy fix. I mean, he would feel his pecs right away. And I don't know why people don't listen to their body. Like, if you do something one time and you feel so much more activation, then, like, keep it like that. Like, people throw out the mind-muscle connection like it means nothing. It means so much to me. In fact, that was a question I asked Frank Zane when I met him a few years ago, because this is something people always talk about now, how mind-muscle doesn't matter. And I know that's not what the old school guys thought at all. When I asked him, like, what he thought about people saying mind-muscle connection doesn't mean anything now, he couldn't believe it. He said that was the most fucking ridiculous thing he ever heard of. He said it was everything, like all the old school guys. And I don't know if it's absolutely everything, but I think it's huge. Yeah, so not the best pressing technique. And then let's look at a fly. Now, this is kind of ridiculous, bro. Like, you don't need to go so heavy on a fly that you can only do 4 reps for, and that you got to do all this shit to set it up. Don't need gin pins with 245s for a fly. So let's see what kind of shape changes we're getting. We're already just super squished. We like, that's just your sternum that's getting stretched, bro. Now, at least he got a little bit of protraction on that. That wasn't terrible for as heavy as this is, but that's just way too deep. That's so unnecessary. Like, so unnecessary. You're going to get more retraction on a fly than you are on a press, but you still want to maintain like a slight bit of depression, at least in the beginning. Yeah, like when I watch him do this, I can't feel my pecs firing. When I do flies, I do let them squeeze a lot more, but as soon as I bring them together, I'm pushing, I'm protracting right away. I'm not just thinking adduction. I'm not trying to just bring it together. I'm trying to bring it together and press forward. And a lot of people like him, they're just thinking bring it together, and they're missing out on a lot of that protraction at the end. Now he's just stuck pinned back because it's so heavy. He's not able to get that push forward that he did get a little bit on the first one. So I don't know. This is kind of ridiculous. I don't think I would be doing this on a fly. Now, if you guys have seen my scrolling through IGs, maybe you remember this guy. I just want to give you an example of what it looks like when somebody's not compressed. You can see this guy has got some crazy details on his pecs. His sternal fibers are nuts. And as soon as I saw this guy pop up on my IG, I was like, I'm going to go look at his workout videos because I know how he doesn't work out. I know he doesn't work out like what we just saw. Let's see what he does. And I have tons of examples of this kind of stuff on my chest training video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I'm not just cherry picking one person who's got the most amazing chest genetics in the world. Go look at that video. I've got a lot of examples of good and bad technique. But there's no way you can achieve that kind of like look if you work out super compressed. So let's look at the way he works out compared to Ryan. So now this guy works out way closer to what I work out like. So watch as he lowers it. He doesn't lose his rib cage. You don't see any big extension. You don't see him compressed to the back like crazy. It's a smaller range of motion, but it's all on the pecs. And I love alternating presses. As you're doing one side, and one side's getting compressed, the other side's gaining some expansion. So it's a really good way to fight that anterior to posterior compression that comes from bilateral pressing. And again, he's not using a huge, crazy range of motion or doing anything crazy with an arch. Now look at his flies versus Ryan's flies. So a lot smaller range of motion. He's even getting slightly less scapular traction than I might get, but I do it like this too. That is so much more time under tension, and he's not getting the negative consequences that are going to come with the shape changing of the sternum and taking all the tension off your pecs and getting all that posterior compression. That's why he's got a 3D look. I mean, plus obviously the gear. He's like in the Middle East. They got like crazy shit out there right here. But the way he works out is the reason he's got that 3D look. If he didn't work out that way, still probably look pretty good, but it would not be the same, I promise. So again, good stack. You don't see his belly poking out. Smaller range of motion, but it's a continuous tension on the pecs. So this is somebody who probably is not science-based. He probably doesn't talk super fast and explain a million things that don't really matter, but he knows how to work out his chest, and a lot of times the bros get it better. And like I said, definitely check out my chest video if you haven't seen it. That is what I get comments for the most. Every single day I get messages from somebody telling me how their chest training is so much better now and they can actually connect with their pecs, or their shoulders don't hurt, or they're so thankful that they don't do it the Dr. Mike way anymore, or that they're just so much more aesthetic now. So I could literally post these all day. I get them every single day. So if you have not tried chest pressing with a little bit of integrity into your stack and without just letting your scapula squeeze super hard and your ribcage flare, give it a shot. I promise you'll feel it and you'll get better results. Now here's something I actually really like is his rows for lats. This is exactly what I do. And he talks about, keeping your core braced. I wish he would do that on presses as well. I mean, he kind of understands it for lats, but the same thing applies to your pecs. They both attach to the rib cage. But I like that a lot. In fact, I don't hate anything. The only thing I don't like is his presses, really. There is zero reason to do a tricep kickback. This is another example of how like a surface level of understanding can make you give incorrect advice. So I think kickbacks are great. My coach, Justin Compton, programs them for me. He was a fucking monster. But when you say it's the same thing, we need to look at it on a deeper layer, not just dead guy anatomy, what's happening at the elbow joint. So let's think about what's happening. If you are standing up and you're doing just a tricep extension, yeah, there's not really a difference at the elbow joint, but the shoulder joint, that's a lot different. If I'm closer to the cable and I'm just doing a tricep extension, that's not a lot of force that I'm fighting to keep my shoulder back. There's not a lot of activation from the shoulder extensors like the long head to keep it there. Now, if you're bent over and you're pulling from a cable down low or just even a weight, now you've got a lot more work coming from your long head of your tricep to keep you stable because of that moment arm that I hate talking about. So if you hinge over, potentially you could get more activation out of your long head of your tricep just from the stabilizing component, from maintaining that shoulder extension. It's also gonna change things like where you're getting expansion in your body. So if I'm standing tall, especially if you're close to the cable, you got your elbow back, and you're coming down, you get some decent anterior expansion. But if you hinge over and you've got that elbow back, now it's working harder to keep you back. You've got more activation going on in these posterior muscles. You're gonna open up that front side to take more of the air, to get more expansion, because these muscles aren't concentrically activating. Whereas if you're standing up, you don't get that same activation from the back. So it does change things. Is it a huge deal? Like, no, but I wouldn't say it's the exact same thing. And I definitely wouldn't say there's no point in doing a bent over kickback at all. I wouldn't say there's no point of doing anything really. Like, there's often a benefit to doing things very slightly different for no other reason than getting airflow in different areas and getting different amounts of expansion. And here's another instance of my brain just doing what it does when I look at somebody. Like, look at his standing posture. Look how forward his center of gravity is. See how his legs are like going forward. His pelvis is in front of his rib cage. He's got that really big anterior tilt, the really tight lower erectors. So homeboy's got some issues that I think he could fix and that would actually really help him develop his chest. And if he doesn't have any pain, that's really good. But I think if he did fix his issues, maybe he would feel better, even if he doesn't have pain. I can't imagine he doesn't feel anything in his joints or anything in his back the way he is, but maybe he does. But I definitely think it would still help with his aesthetics. But overall, I'm not hating on the guy. I think he talks really fast, and that's all good, whatever. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not really into this philosophy of training, but if it connects with you, then go for it. I think most of his stuff is good besides the chest stuff. Now, another Natty influencer who I would say is kind of almost like the opposite end of the spectrum is my boy GVS, who we got the roundtable going on next week, and I've also done a couple podcasts with them. We also had the debate with Scientific Snitch. Now, GVS is somebody who does not apply all the crazy scientific theories and extrapolate things from studies. He's more of a bro, and now he definitely isn't like a meathead idiot, but he doesn't base his things off of like scientific studies, which I don't think anyone should. And he's got a really crazy physique for a natty. I mean, arguably, I would say probably more impressive than Ryan's. And he doesn't do everything in a way that Ryan would consider optimal. And I don't know how often Ryan gets accused of being a fake natty, but it can't be as often as GVS, because GVS is always accused of being a fake natty. Here he made a video talking about if there's any pride in staying natty. And I made a comment, pretty sure you and your arms have inspired tons of people to stay natty. And, mostly good vibes. And then, of course, you have a couple of these fucking losers who think it's just impossible for GVS to be Natty. Seriously, those SARMs are insane. Fixed it for you. But he is fake. So there's 1, 2 different people. 3, you think this guy is natural. 4, guy has the telltale trin look and his brow became Dagestani and y'all still think he's Natty. Like, I don't know what you think the telltale trends look is at all, because if you watch GVS's videos, there's plenty of times he looks natty as fuck. Like, he's good at getting good lighting, and he's got some body parts that can be impressive when he knows how to pose. But if you know what you're looking at, like, you can definitely see shots of him. You're like, yeah, I think he's natty. I mean, if we're being honest, GVS is like 90% triceps. Like, that is what makes him fucking freaky. I mean, he's got good quads, actually decent quads, and pecs are okay. But it's like, if he didn't have his triceps, no one would be thinking he was fake natty. At least not nearly as many people. Here's this thread on Reddit. GVS is the biggest fake natty, and if you think he's natural, you are delusional. That just makes me think that people don't have any exposure to real freaks that are out there, to the mutants that exist in this world. So when we look at his physique, yeah, he's got a good physique, but you can see like steady, continuous progress. Not like he made a huge jump all at once. And he's got these like show me body parts that people like attribute to gear. He's got really crazy traps. He's got really good like bicep to shoulder separation. And he always takes pictures in goon lighting, but this is nowhere near elite genetics. I'm sorry. I love GVS, but I think he would even tell you he does not have elite genetics. Maybe better than 80% of the people. Let's say that GVS is in the top 20%. Like, and that might be being generous, but say he's better than 80% of the people genetic wise. The difference between him at 20% versus somebody that's in the top 5%, that difference is so huge, because just the way the bell curve exists, that is way more. That's gonna be way more different than it is from GVS to somebody who's like exactly average, who's in the 50th percentile. That 30% difference is gonna be way less than the 15% difference as you get closer to these elite genetic freaks. I think some people just have never been exposed to these kind of people in their life, so that's why they don't know. But I went to a high school that had like 5 fucking NFL pros. Like, we were a sports school. We had some freaking mutants there. And this is an article that I found about a kid I went to high school with who had the most insane genetics I have ever seen in my life. And they actually had 2 brothers that were almost just as fucking freaky as him. One was a grade older, and then one was in my grade. So like, they were just mutants. Our football team was just freaking crazy because of them. But listen to this. This kid was 6'1", 235 pounds. In his junior season, he power cleaned 350 pounds, bench pressed 485 pounds, had a 36-inch vertical, and a 4.5 40 speed. Do you guys have any idea what a fucking freak that is? He was just crazy to look at, too. Just shredded. Ate like shit, didn't train good for shit. I wish I could find a picture of him. This is the only picture I found online. But you can't tell by looking at him. He's a fucking monster, just by looking at that face. But I couldn't find any pictures. There was this one really famous picture in the newspaper where he was a running back. And then like there's people trying to tackle him, and you can just see his fucking 20-inch arm just as some guy's falling off of him, but I could not find it. But we ended up going to the same college, Texas Tech, and he played football there. And he ended up setting the school record on the power clean at 420 pounds as a freshman. Here's Saquon Barkley cleaning 390 pounds. So this is one of the biggest freaks in the NFL, and he was stronger than that. While I love me some GVS, and I think he's got a crazy physique, this white guy genetics right here, this is not elite. This is not unattainable without juice. Compare that to these crazy Nigerian genetics on Quinton Araya, who was natural here. This is before he turned pro as a natty. And you can tell there are levels to this. You know, impressive, looks good, elite genetics. GVS, elite natty genetics. So yeah, I mean, if you guys think GVS is not natty, then there's no way you would believe that Quinton isn't. But this is what happens when somebody who's got elite genetics hops on gear. They turn into a fucking monster like this. And I also think that like saying GVS is on gear and a fake natty, that really kind of takes away from how hard he fucking works. Like, he looks the way he does because have you seen him train? He fucking puts in work and he connects to his body. You know, maybe you don't do that the same way, and so you think that it's impossible. And also, like, homeboy lives in China. He's a white American dude living in China. You understand how dangerous it is for him to do steroids out there, how illegal it is out there? He could get drug tested at any point. He could come to the U.S. and smoke weed and get drug tested. 2 weeks later in China and get arrested and thrown in jail for a long time. Like, he's not fucking around with that. And then ain't nobody helping him out there. No one out there is helping the white American guy get juice, okay? It is not America. It's not New Jersey out there. It is way harder to do gear in China. So GVS looks good, but another thing to take into account is, like, I've never seen GVS, like, stage lean. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but I've never seen him at that bone dry stage condition where things change. You don't have that crazy 3D look, especially if you're Natty at that point. I guarantee you, if he did get stage lean, he would not be looking like this. Babacar, who is the WNBF champion from last year, this is what it looks like to have elite genetics, okay? So stop calling GVS a fake Natty, all right? This is fun. This is Kai when he was Natty, just making these other guys look like children. Like he's the man. And then Keon's a really good example of someone, too, who's got top-level genetics. This is when he was an amateur, totally natural. This is as a pro classic, totally natural. Pro classic, totally natural. This was his last show as a Natty, the Arnold Classic in 2019. A lot of people thought he was on gear here. He did some blood tests to prove that he wasn't. People still doubted him. And then he hopped on gear, grew out of the division, and won a pro show in the 212 division the next year. So this is another example of what happens when a truly elite genetic freak hops on gear. To go from here to here in a year is insane. And people are so cynical nowadays that they'll be like, everyone you showed was on gear, none of them were natural at all. And I can like pull up this guy from 1925 who's got crazy arms. And if people didn't know that this picture was from 1925, they'd be like saying he was on trend. And we can even go further back. Let's look at a good old Hackenschmidt. I think this is a picture from like 1900. Like, people are so fucking stupid nowadays. They would look at him and be like, I don't know, man. Those delts are pretty sus. He's definitely running a few cycles of trend. It's like, come on, guys. Like, yeah, there are some fake natties out there, and there are a lot of people out there who take gear and don't even look like they should taking gear. But don't become so jaded that you just think everyone's a fucking liar. Okay, I promise you, if I think anyone's a fake natural, I'll call them out. I have zero doubt in my mind that GVS is not a fake natty. I know you guys want him to be for whatever reason. I don't know. So people always love when I have GVS on the podcast. He's a super popular guest. I had him debate scientific Snitch, and she has probably been my most controversial guest I've ever had. And I don't really know why. I don't know why people seem to like find her so controversial, and a lot of people don't like her. I thought she was great. I really loved the podcast we did. I thought I got to see like a different side to her, and I think what she's doing is awesome. It's not easy to be like a young girl in this industry, so more power to her. And I thought this was really interesting. In this video, she's talking about how to fix muscle imbalances.
How to fix muscle imbalances. If a muscle on one side of your body is stronger and larger than a muscle on the other side, all you have to do is program unilateral exercises that target the imbalanced muscles so you can start on your weak.
I wouldn't say all you have to do is unilateral exercises. Like, your muscles are imbalanced because of the axial skeleton being in a position that certain ones are in a better position to yield to force, and certain ones are in a better position to overcome force. You have things that are concentrically oriented and things that are eccentrically oriented, and they can have a different appearance as well, but they can also function very differently. So you definitely do want to use unilateral work, but I wouldn't say that's all it takes. A lot of times you got to reposition your rib cage and pelvis.
Weak side, train close to or at failure with your weak side, and then irrespective of intensity, match the load and volume on your strong side.
I don't think that's bad advice necessarily at all. I have no problem with that. I just want to look a little deeper.
For example, I've been noticing that my right tricep is significantly weaker than my left tricep because I had a rib surgery on my right side.
So this is really interesting. She's talking about how her right tricep is significantly weaker than her left tricep. And this is something that I see all the time. I see there's so many people I work with that the left tricep is like really thick and developed, especially that long head, where the right, it just looks like a mishmash of things. And this is something I talked about with Dr. Loke on the podcast I did. So if you're interested in kind of the PRI perspective as it relates to bodybuilding, check out that podcast. But this is something that's normal. Most everybody is going to have an easier time connecting to their left tricep versus the right, especially the long head. She says it's because she had a surgery on her right side of her ribs, and that can exacerbate this. That'll make it even worse. But this is a natural kind of situation that occurs in most everybody, because we start to get the sternum shifted to the right as the rib cages move to the left. We no longer have the ability to do any like right trunk rotation, and that is initiated by the long head of your right tricep. I guess I should show you so you get a little better visualization. Okay, so if you want your right tricep to activate, You need to turn on your left hamstrings and your left abdominals, in particular the internal obliques. So what happens is as we're stepping off our left foot and getting onto this right side, we're really good at getting these obliques and these hamstrings to activate, and that stabilizes us as we come through this left trunk rotation to a left stance position. So we're able to get to this position like really comfortably. Like you could hang out there all day. When we get to this left stance position and that right arm's forward, this is gonna be a little more awkward. You can try it yourself. We'll tip over. You won't have the obliques activate and the hamstring turn on as easily as on this side. It's just gonna be natural for 95% of the people. So as I'm over here, if I can't get my left hamstring and my left obliques to keep me centered on this left side, as soon as I initiate the right arm swing, about to get on the right foot, we're not gonna be able to get that right tricep to activate and to get that right trunk rotation to get onto the right leg. We need the left hamstring, the left obliques to work with the right tricep. They pair together, they work synergistically. So the fact that we can't get on our left leg makes us not be able to have any right trunk rotation. So if you want to think about it in terms of like the muscle activation and what's going on, this right side of the rib cage is more compressed, more closed down. That's going to have an impact on the scapula. The superior border is going to move anteriorly and the inferior border, the bottom part, is going to move posteriorly. So you've got like a anterior tipping of the scapula. That's going to make your pec minor and more of a concentric orientation. It's going to be a little tighter, a little turned on. That tends to work in conjunction with the biceps, especially the short head of your biceps. And together, those inhibit the right tricep. So if you want to get your right tricep to work, you need to get this right rib cage to open. You need to facilitate some internal rotation too. You need to be able to get that long head to actually do shoulder extension to get some right trunk rotation. And it's this way just because we're managing internal forces. You got your heart on the one side, we got bigger diaphragm on one side, the intestines line up a little different, you've got your liver. So we're all managing the same things internally. And just because you have something that happens, like she had the surgery on her ribs, that doesn't change it. It's just gonna push you probably more into that pattern. Like for example, I injured my left meniscus when I was real young, and I was already like in the left AIC pattern. I couldn't get off my right side, but injuring my left knee pushed me even more on my right side. Now, if I had injured my right knee, I wasn't gonna automatically get good at pushing off my right side and now be on my left. It doesn't work that way. What would have happened is I would have figured some other way to manage being stuck on my right side. I wouldn't be good at getting off my right. I'd probably be even worse, but I might have my pelvis really anteriorly tipped. I might be really walking forward. I could have like some sort of lateral shift closing down as I'm moving outside of my base of support. So usually any kind of injury or anything like that is just going to push you further into a pattern that you were already in.
To fix the imbalance, I've started programming unilateral tricep extensions, where I start on my right side, train to failure, and then match the volume and load on my left side regardless of whether or not I hit failure on my left side. So if with my working weight I get 8 reps to failure on my right weak side, I'll do 8 reps on my left strong side even if I don't get to failure on my left side. Doing this allows my weak side to catch up with my strong side because I'm not training with the same intensity.
There are some people that say you shouldn't do that. I think I would tend to side with her. I don't think it's going to be good to just make things more imbalanced. But again, look at the underlying causes, because a lot of times you can change something positionally and that thing that's weaker, like now it's not weaker. It wasn't because you had so much more tissue on the other side. It's because it wasn't in a position to function that good. So if you want to get your right tricep to function as good as your left, get the sternum to shift to the left, get the rib cage to shift to the right, open up some right apical chest expansion, gets that IR I talked about. So if you want any help, just hit me up, Elle. I'll help you for free. It's what I get paid the big bucks to do. Now, one thing I would have her do if I was helping her out is I would have her do some PRI right tricep focused stuff. And this is a classic PRI move. It's pretty standard for anyone dealing with like bicep tendonitis or having trouble connecting to the right tricep. This is going to help you initiate that right trunk rotation as you're getting off of the right leg onto the left. And so it can also help your internal rotation and pronation pretty significantly. I'm going to check right here and look at my internal rotation. I would say that is probably about 35 degrees, not a lot. And it's like a hard stop, doesn't feel good there. And then my pronation, not too good. You see how much my elbow's deviating out? Now, when you're doing this move, you only want like a 5 or 3 pound weight. You got to keep it super light. You're gonna go into hook line. Make sure you don't start to really compress your right side. It's really easy to shorten that right side. This first variation is probably a little too tough for most of you guys to do. I'm probably not going to recommend it, but if you can do it, it's the best because it is the most similar to what we're trying to recreate with your gait pattern, right? We want to stay in that shoulder flex position as we get that long head of the tricep activated. We want to try to recreate the best we can, but it's going to be hard for a lot of you. But if you can do it, this is what it'll look like. You got to make sure you keep good supination. It can be hard to keep that as you're going. Make sure not to push too far to the ceiling with your elbows. You don't want a lot of front activation on this stuff. If anything, you want to slightly retract. Now, the problem with this is a lot of people are going to compress to the right side, or they're just too tight posteriorly and they're going to get too much extension, and we don't want that. So most of you guys would be better doing this variation. Okay, we're going to bring the elbow across, and now that just stabilizes your scapula a lot easier. You're not going to have as much compression from the back, and it's also easier to engage your left abdominal. So this is probably the version for most of you guys to do, but if you can do the first and you feel good, that is the better option. And you also will feel a lot of like your forearm burning on this. You feel a lot around there. You feel a lot of tricep, but also the forearm, and you'd be surprised how heavy that can be. Now let's see if there's any improvement in IR and pronation. So I went from 35 to about 50 degrees, and it feels way smoother. That's a lot better. And then let's look at this pronation. Oh, that is so much better. Again, I know you guys probably don't have the eye for this that I do, but that was so much smoother. My elbow didn't deviate out like crazy. And I'm actually I'm at a way better angle. So just by doing that for a minute, opened up this chest wall and I got better IR and I got better pronation. And now I have a little better right trunk rotation as well. So definitely throw that into your arsenal, L. And then finally, another move that you could do, this is something I really like to help get your trunk good at rotating to the right, getting that rib cage to move to the right while we're in that left stance position. And this is a video from a chest day that I posted for my highest tier of members. I've been doing weekly workouts. It's actually been like 2 or 3 workouts a week where I really go in depth with my thought process when it comes to like mobility and exercise techniques. So if you're interested, check that out. It's new for you guys. And so I'm just gonna let this run for a second. And if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, check out my membership options.
Okay, so I'm gonna get this band. I'm gonna pull it over and across my left shoulder. So now I've got that rib cage going to the right again. So it's really important to note, I only want the rib cage to go. I don't want to turn the torso. I'm not trying to move the sternum is just that rib cage. So I'm going to push this left arm forward and down, crank it down through those low lats and little of the intercostals, obliques. And I'm going to open that right side up. Okay, I'm going to shift into that left hip, into what we call left AFIR in PRI terms, but you can just think about creating a yielding position or sitting back on that left inner heel. And then I'm going to reach slightly across the body, keep pressure on that left inner foot. Again, very similar to the post-capsule inhibition you guys have probably seen. So I'm reaching across, got the right rib cage flaring open. I'm gonna take some breaths from here. Now what's gonna happen is a lot of you guys are gonna be like extended in your low back. Gotta sit back, let it relax, almost be slightly flexed. This is gonna be probably too complicated for most of y'all to do. So I'm gonna sit here and take a couple breaths, then I'm gonna lift up my right heel. So now I've got my left hamstring adductors working pretty good.
And when I do this move, I can immediately see a difference in my presentation. My right shoulder won't be so pulled down. I'll have a lot different presentation with my actual shoulder position. If I'm really off, this will be forward and this will almost be back like that. I can do this move and I end up looking way more neutral. And there's a lot of ways to get your rib cage and your sternum to shift. I could do a short lever side plank as I pull back with a band and hold that and breathe. A lot of different options. It's good to know biomechanics and to know how to manipulate them for what you need. Which is a good segue. Here's my calendar. If you guys want any help, check it out. I've got appointments available. I've been able to do a little bit less in-person training, so I've been doing a lot more of these, and they're lots of fun. I'm enjoying helping you guys. So let's take a look at somebody that I do train and help, and this is my boy Sergio. And I have been meaning to get back out to Vegas. We're gonna do the back video, but it has just been so hectic with my life, with moving, with everything going on, and fucking Vegas is miserable this time of year. I do not want to go sit out in 115-degree weather, but I'll do it for you guys. I'll do another video with Sergio soon, the next month or so. But I'm always watching him. I'm always seeing if he's keeping the stuff that we gained, and I know he does some of his breath work, and I know he's very aware. But he's got a goal. He wants to make the Olympia. He wants to put on size. So he's pushing through certain things that maybe aren't ideal, but I get it. And he's way more aware. Nothing's crazy like it was, but I still see some things that I'm like, oh, I wish I was there and I could fix that a little bit. So let's take a look. Here we got some presses, and this is his biggest issue is chest presses. And let's see if he's got any of those bad compensations happening now. So if you look at him right off the start, he's into that left side. He's compressed. He's shifted that way already. But he's doing a pretty good job of fighting it, and he already squared up a little bit. Now he's back into that left a little more. And when we worked together, I really changed how he was doing his flies, and I'm glad he's keeping that. He's getting way better tension on his pecs with none of the negative consequences of going a little too far deep for what he can handle right now. Yeah, these look good. That is really good to see. Yeah, you can see right away. This is going to be a lot more challenging because it's hard to keep that scapula stable on a fly versus a press, especially with dumbbells. It's a little different when you're doing the machine. But I know how tight he is, and that is really good control. Sergio has got fucking crazy control. For as tight as he is to be able to do what he does, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, these are going to be pretty tricky too. Yeah, I love that he's kept a shorter range of motion. I know that was harder for him to accept at first, but not bad considering. You can see how he shifts in that left side a little bit every time, but not like crazy. Yeah, just minor. You can see how that jumps a little bit, but he's looking like a fucking monster. I don't think it's going to stop him from making the Olympia this year. All right, so if you watched the chest workout video I did with Sergio, this is actually one of the positional drills we did to help improve this issue of that upper left side compressing excessively. Now, for me personally, I actually do a hook line with a right arm reach. You may have seen me do that before. I've talked about how that's my favorite way to push air into that upper left area of your thoracic rib cage. But Sergio and I are very different structurally. He's about as wide as a human as you can be, where I'm about average. So for him, he's a lot more concentrically oriented, like on the front side of his body. And so if he goes into a hook line, that could further drive that. So I want to get him closer to like 90 degrees of hip flexion to drive a little more nutation, which can eccentrically orient the tight front side. So this is the move that we did in the video. This is a left hand elevated breathing move. And what that's going to do, that's going to kind of like help push your rib cage back where it's pulled forward on that left side. The left hand elevated is actually facilitating like a right hand reach because the right hand's in front of the left, right? So that's gonna turn our spiny process a little bit to the right and help open up space in between the scapula and the spine to get some expansion. So you just wanna elevate your hand on something that's only like an inch high, not any higher than that. And you want to like engage your abs, but think about engaging your abs in a way where you're not like crunching hard. You wanna, I tell people to think about engaging them while they're stretched, if that makes sense. So we're not tucking and squeezing hard, we're engaging them in a lengthened way you can think of. It's gonna be a little deeper muscles if we do that. We're just gonna do our breaths. And as we exhale, I'm pushing through the inner part of the palms. So for this version, I'm a little protracted because I do wanna get a little bit more in the backside than the front, but I'm not so close down that I got a lot of concentric activity on the front. And usually this is fine on its own, but if you want to add a little bit of a challenge to it, you could just barely pick up your knees. Now, potentially another move that could be really good for this would be some kind of 90-90 position on the wall with either a right hand reach or a left hand reach turning into it. Now, for Sergio, he really had no internal rotation on his left hip. And that's really common. That's super, super common. And that is part of the reason why people get super compressed in that upper left side of their back is because if we're missing internal rotation in this hip, anytime we're trying to turn into that side, if we don't have that rotation in that hip, like when we're walking, we tend to just extend at that upper back. So if you want to get rid of that upper back compression on the left side, you usually need to find some internal rotation on that left hip, and that'll help. So we're going to do something that's going to drive a little bit of hamstring activity and internal rotation on the left side while trying to get expansion on that upper left back area. So I'm going to do this 90-90 hip lift. You want to make sure you have something between your knees. So you could come up a little bit higher if you're extremely wide like Sergio. You just want to make sure that you don't use your abs. We're trying to get your abs to chill out, so only use your hamstrings to pull you up. We're going to shift the left knee back very slightly, right knee forward, And I'm going to, for this version, I'm going to start with the right hand reach with my left elbow up. So this is very similar to what I do in hook line, but I'm just at 90 degrees of hip flexion instead of 60. So I'll be driving more nutation instead of counter nutation. So as I exhale, just turn into that left side a little bit, making sure that we're staying like full on our back. We can feel it pushing against the ground as we inhale. You don't have any kind of extension at all. You want to be real heavy on that left side of your back, feel it slightly flexed. So you do a couple breaths like that. If you can, so I've already pulled up my right heel a little bit too. So you can keep your heel down if you can't keep your position, if you lift it up, but if you lift it up, you'll get a little more of that left hamstring, which is always good. So my right heel is a little bit in the air. Now, if you can do that, pretty easy, you could try to do a left hand reach. It's a little trickier. You're gonna have to very slightly turn into it. So that happens naturally when you do a right hand reach, you turn to the left. We can get the same kind of expansion with a left hand reach, but we've got to reach and turn into it. And it also just represents a little bit different part of the gait pattern. So it's good if you can do this. It's just harder. Those two moves could really help if you are a wider ISA. And again, anytime you hear me talk about ISA stuff, that is from Bill Hartman. So make sure to check out his stuff. I always want to give him credit. But if you're a wider ISA, probably better trying to do something closer to like 90 degrees of hip flexion if you're just super compressed, which most of you guys are. If you're a little more narrow, I really like the hook line version that I think I did in my last video, but I've done it in a couple others.
We'll have to link up soon. It's been a while since I talked to Sergio, a couple months. I like to try to do a podcast at least every month or two with him. He's a really good guy. All right, so let's keep it on pro bodybuilders. And Sergio is my favorite bodybuilder. He was my favorite bodybuilder before I knew him. Iain Valliere is probably my second favorite. I fucking love Iain. I think he's hilarious. I love the bodybuilding mind that he has and what he brings to the community and to the sport. But he's not Canada's best bodybuilder, and I'm sick of people saying this shit. You see it here, Canada's best bodybuilder. You see on this post, Tarek Gundy says the greatest Canadian bodybuilder of all times. And I say, bro, Paul Dillet exists. Tarek tells me Paul Dillet did not win as many pro shows as Iain, who won 6. I think Paul won 3 or 4. I can't remember, but it's like Paul Dillet won shows in the 90s when it was much harder, when you had people like Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman competing in every show there is. So I think his 3 or 4 wins, however many he has, are probably more valuable than Iain's. I mean, if we're just going by wins, Darren Charles has 7 pro wins as a bodybuilder. Is he a better bodybuilder than Iain? No, he would get smoked by Iain. And I'm just kind of messing around with Tarek too. I don't know if you guys know Tarek. He hosts the Olympia TV podcast. He's an Olympia judge. His brother Tamer promotes the Olympia. They run muscle contests together. I've known Tarek for 15 years. He's a buddy of mine. We fuck around. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, but I don't think he can because of the one he does, he said. But that would be cool. He's a cool guy. I've known him forever. But Iain's awesome. I mean, he looks great, but, I mean, come on. Paul Dillet is the original mass monster with aesthetics. Like, that is fucking wild. And I'm not saying Iain doesn't have some great shots. His side shots are great, even though he doesn't have a good tricep in his side tricep. I think his back double came up pretty good towards the end of his career. It was like really good, actually. And I saw him live at the Texas Pro when he beat Steve Kuklo and Phil Klahar, and he looked crazy. He looked amazing. But you ain't better than Paul Dillet, bro. Let's throw some respect on Dillet's name. I mean, it's not like Iain had crazy shots all around. Like, he had a lot of shots that weren't that great. I mean, his front double wasn't that good. And I just want to remind you guys how good Paul Dillet was, in case you forgot. I mean, look at this monster. If he could pose for anything, like if he wasn't such a shit poser, he would have won so many more titles and placed so much higher at the Olympia. He's top 5 like 4 or 5 times. He got 4th, he got 5th multiple times, he got 6th. Iain never placed better than 7th. You got to give Paul Dillet the nod over Iain. And look at this. This is hilarious. Do you see what he just did? He just totally eclipsed Dorian Yates, who's doing a front lat while he's doing a front lat. That's hilarious. And look at him right next to Flex, like outclassing him in terms of muscle mass. I mean, here he is next to a young Ronnie Coleman, just totally outsizing him. Here he is standing relaxed next to Flex Wheeler in his prime. Can you imagine what the fuck Iain would look like just standing relaxed next to Flex Wheeler? He would not compare this good, I promise you. But Paul did pose his back like shit. Iain would definitely win the back double. It's very hard to find a picture of Paul where he's not doing this weird squeeze together thing, and it sucks because he actually doesn't have a terrible back. He just doesn't know how to present it for shit. Here he is doing the same thing. Again, you can tell he's got the size there, He's not really super conditioned, but it's not like Iain had the best back ever. He just had a better back double as time went on. But here he is just standing relaxed next to Dorian, and he's holding his own. He does not look terrible. But he was just so shaky when he posed. He was such a shit show. Here he is just out-muscling Dorian right next to him in 94. Here he is standing next to Kevin Levrone, holding his own in a side chest. Who the fuck can do that? Iain is getting smoked standing next to Kevin Levrone. I'm sorry. So I love Iain. Like I said, he's my favorite probably next to Sergio, but come on. Let's not disrespect Frankenstein, the original mass monster with aesthetics, Paul Dillet. All right, so we're getting towards the end here. I want to do a couple quick hits and just go through a couple things real fast that I found amusing. I think that this is hilarious.
If you get the opportunity, you should pay yourself.
I love that somebody put that together and like everybody's like, yep, that's about right. That's fucking Paul. It's like, can you clarify why you think this way when other research shows this? Go fucking die, idiot. I told you guys last time how he was bragging about his $1.5 million house to some kid who asked a question. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? That's pretty funny. Here's just a little preview of what my suggested reels are looking like right now, if you guys are interested. I have started trend, but I'm doing a little lower dosages. After talking to Dr. Dean on our podcast, I'm doing like way lower dosages. So I'm really into this look right now. I'm not feeling the morbidly obese baddies yet. If I up the trend, maybe. But these are the girls that are catching my attention right now on Instagram. I thought this girl was super hot. She's a cop who smashed through her ex's door with a baton, threatened to burn down the house. Like, that is fucking passion. I want somebody to be that passionate about me. She broke into her former boyfriend's house and went on a violent and destructive rampage. He probably deserved it. Like, look at her. You wouldn't expect that. That's what makes it even better. She doesn't have the crazy look to her so much. So I like that it's even more unexpected. And this would make me more attracted to her. If she was my ex and she did this, I'd be like, fuck, she does care about me. And, all right, because I'm not even joking. I had a really bad relationship, you could call it, with somebody who was much older than me when I was young. She was a district attorney, and she ended up stalking me and really trying to like get crazy with me. And it made me like attracted to her again. That's when I realized the first time, like, something's fucking wrong with me. Like, I should not be attracted to that. But want what you want, right? And then this one, what caught my attention, because you don't see tons of like smiling mugshots on girls, and this one was for a domestic abuse and battery. So the fact that she's smiling, like just cheesing ear to ear after getting charged with domestic assault, that's pretty hot. I definitely would not file charges on her. Yeah, well, the other girl didn't have the crazy look. This girl definitely has the crazy look, and they both do it for me. I don't know why, but my algorithm keeps showing me like memes about trying to get girls off. I don't know what it's trying to tell me. I thought this was really funny. Almost there. Oh, you fuck. You had to breathe. Sorry. I'm like, fuck, I'm sorry I can't just fucking hold my breath for 3 minutes. I have to come up for air. My bad for being a human being and needing oxygen. Here's another one, classic. Me doing everything I can to make my girl come. It's like, sometimes you just need an extra hand and everything would be perfect. It's like really not fair, right, for us guys, because every girl comes so differently. Like, come on, you know what I'm talking about. There are some girls who come to like manual stimulation. That's really easy, okay? They just touch themselves or you touch them while you're doing it. Easy. Then you got some girls who can come just by riding you. They hit their spot and you don't get to do too much work. But then like some girls require you to like be ambidextrous and speak another language. It's like fucking ridiculous. And then it can really fuck you up if you have like something that really works super good for one girl and you think that's like a go-to, that's the thing. And you try it with your next girl and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, no. But if all you ever known was a girl who came from 2 fingers in her ass and you choking her nearly to death, like, you're gonna be a little skewed in what you think is normal. It's such a bullshit because as a dude, we're fucking easy. All you got is one fucking motion. Even if you fucking suck at it, we're still gonna come. But girls, I mean, some of y'all be easy, but some of y'all are like trying to figure out one of those math problems that like on the wall in Goodwill Hunting. You feel like you gotta be able to solve one of those to make some girls come. Hey, sorry, it wouldn't be scrolling through IG if I didn't say some ridiculous shit like this. So let's check out Judd Lienhard, I think is his name. I've covered him before. And here he is saying you can do far more with dumbbells than you believe. Yeah, he can just do the most random, stupid shit possible if you want. Like, we're not producing any kind of internal rotation force. His foot's moving to the outside. The hips aren't really matching. Like, he's just fucking moving in space. Like, yeah, you can just move your body under load and you can get your heart rate up. Like, what the fuck is this? I swear to God, this guy thinks he's like some sort of like programming mastermind. Like, he knows all the secrets. Like, what the fuck is that? I would love to see what this guy looked like if he wasn't on gear. We can't grow by doing the same things we've always done. I mean, it's been happening since like the 40s. Yeah, I feel like he just totally just did the most random shit he thought of this day and is going to put it in a program and sell it. I mean, I could do this shit too. I could come up with some stupid shit that, I mean, he doesn't even look athletic doing it, but I could come up with some weird shit and market it and say it's the secret to unlocking your potential. You got to do something different. In fact, I think I'm going to. Check this out. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a little bit. If you enjoy this, please like it, share it, subscribe, all that good stuff. We got to 10K. Thank you guys so much for the support. Let's see if we can get to 20. This has been a really fun journey, and I would not do it if I didn't feel like it was paying off and I wasn't feeling like I was having an impact. So thank you guys for allowing me to do that. All right, appreciate it, guys. Take it easy.